Sitting across from a patient in the exam room one day, I was told, "If only you could cut this foot off, I would be fine. The pain never lets up." It's not uncommon for me to encounter patients who wish they could make one or more body parts disappear to solve their problems. Do you ever wish you could just cut off your belly? Did you know that an unhealthy gut is also the source of a vast array of diseases elsewhere in the body? This was recognized nearly 2,500 years ago when Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, taught that all disease begins in the gut. Growing up, I thought of the gut as nothing more than a long tube. I put food in one end and poop came out the other. But it turns out that the gut is far more complex than this. It is responsible for digestion, absorption, elimination, immune protection, blockage and removal of toxins, vitamin production, and more. Suppose your gut isn't happy. You may have discomfort with eating, diarrhea, heartburn, belly pain, or any number of other symptoms. How can we find out what is going on? Well, typically, when you go to your doctor, you may be recommended to undergo a scope of your stomach and upper small intestine, or you might be recommended to have a colonoscopy to check out the other end, or a CAT scan, or an ultrasound. But it turns out that these things are really good for cancer, ulcers, and other big things, but the overwhelming majority of symptoms people experience are caused by things too small to see. Unless there are certain warning signs, these tests are actually the last things we do. Instead, we take a thorough history and then order tests that tell us what is happening on a microscopic level. For example, we may order a comprehensive stool analysis. Routine hospital stool testing is not very helpful. It almost always comes back normal, just as these scopes nearly always come back normal. This is because routine stool testing only looks for big things like Salmonella, Shigella, C. diff, and Giardia. These problems actually cause a fraction of people's symptoms. We may also order intestinal permeability testing to see if the gut lining has been damaged. We commonly order food sensitivity testing. We're not talking about immediate type IgE reactions here. We're talking about delayed type hypersensitivity testing that identifies reactions you may or may not even feel in terms of symptoms. Following are some examples of these tests. Here's a comprehensive stool test starting out with pathogens. As you can see here, we have some of those that I just mentioned, C. diff and Campylobacter, Salmonella, Shigella. There's even cholera here. A couple of parasites and viruses. Then we find out if you have H. pylori. Down below, we're looking at normal bacteria in the intestines to see if you have enough and any good variety. Then we're looking at some not so good ones. I refer to them as weeds. They're not going to kill you, but they don't exactly make your garden look pretty, and they can overtake your garden if you're not careful. Some of these opportunistic or dysbiotic organisms actually are triggers for autoimmune disease. So we take a look at those, as well as yeast. Then we look for parasites. These are actually more common than you would think. We've been taught in America that parasites are just for people in South America or Africa, but that's not true. I'm amazed at how many parasites I find among city-dwelling Americans who never drink from polluted waters, rivers, streams, lakes, and so forth. There are also worms that we check for, not quite as common. And then we look for things like digestive enzyme production, beta-glucuronidase, which is an enzyme made by unfavorable bacteria that cause recirculation of toxins and other things. We look to see how the immune system is functioning in the gut, if we have gluten sensitivity, and calprotectin, the bottom here, which is an indicator of inflammation in the intestines. This is an intestinal permeability test. It basically tells us about the presence and degree of intestinal permeability in a person's gut. It's kind of like seeing if you have holes in your gut. Normal results are outlined in green. You can see in this case that the yellow and red outlined results in the previous test on the right side have normalized by the time of the repeat test, indicating healing of this person's leaky gut. This next test is a food sensitivity test. It detects all three delayed allergy pathways, types 2, 3, and 4, but it only identifies symptom-provoking reactive substances, not merely antibodies. Like other food sensitivity tests, antibodies can be either harmful or protective. This test exposes your white blood cells to different foods and chemicals to identify which ones actually cause reactions that are harmful to you. Here's an example of the results. At the top we have strong reactions along with strong food groups, and then moderate reactions down below. On another page we see a whole list of non-reactive items. These are things that they may or may not be good for you. They may even be toxic, some of them, but your immune system is not trying to attack them, causing you symptoms. On additional pages, we have explanations of each sensitivity telling us where it comes from, where it is often hidden, how to avoid it, and what to use instead. One of the most common gut problems we see by far is leaky gut, otherwise known as intestinal permeability. Leaky gut occurs when the gut wall is compromised and large spaces develop between the cells, allowing bacteria, toxins, and undigested food particles to enter the bloodstream. If I were to tell you that leaky gut is extremely common in our society, this slide explains why. We are living in a toxic soup. We're buried in stress. Emotional trauma is rampant. We have a lot of disease, a lot of infections. We block stomach acid and eat too fast, preventing our stomachs from producing enough. We take ibuprofen and other NSAIDs like candy. We use antibiotics like candy. Leaky gut was unheard of until glyphosate came along. Glyphosate pokes holes in the gut lining like nothing else. Of course, other pesticides, food coloring, artificial sweeteners like aspartame, additives, food preservatives, heavy metals that are all around us, plastics and air pollutants, all of these poke holes in the gut. As a kid, I used to think food coloring was really cool because the popsicle changed the color of my tongue to blue or pink or purple. It was really neat. What I've learned is that when something changes the color of your tongue, it's because it is breaking double bonds in the cells that line the tongue. Now, if it's breaking double bonds in the tongue, guess what it does to intestinal cells? Yeah, you don't want food breaking double bonds in your cells. That is not healthy. Now let me draw your attention to two of these toxins in particular. Glyphosate is incorporated into each cell of a plant, so you can't wash it off the food. It accumulates in animal tissues. So we get glyphosate even when we eat meat, unless it is fed non-GMO grains. So we want to eat as many organic foods as possible. Virtually all studies agree that all conventional NSAIDs increase intestinal permeability within 24 hours of ingestion. Can you believe that? So, another great way to poke holes in your intestinal lining, taking ibuprofen, Celebrex, Advil, Naproxen, Aleve. Changing gears, let's talk about the health effects of intestinal permeability. Common symptoms people complain of are gas, bloating, cramps, diarrhea, constipation, infections of all kinds, respiratory problems, allergies, skin problems like eczema, psoriasis, and rashes and acne. The skin is actually a window into your gut. And who would have thought that your gut has anything to do with your muscles and your joints? But it does. It has everything to do with them. Leaky gut also causes fatigue, hormone imbalances, sinus problems, allergies, and difficulty losing weight. And if that's not bad enough, it causes autoimmune disease, heart attack, heart failure, cancer, asthma, high blood pressure, hypothyroidism, brain inflammation and dysfunction, high cholesterol, colitis, and irritable bowel syndrome. Turning specifically to autoimmune disease, let me give you a few examples so you know what I'm talking about. Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is the #1 cause of hypothyroidism in America. Celiac disease, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, diabetes type 1, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, psoriasis, multiple sclerosis, and much more. Brain dysfunction has a number of manifestations. Attention deficit, behavior problems in children, and adults for that matter, mood swings, depression, obsessive compulsive disorder, anxiety, dementia, Parkinson's, autism, and migraines. In some cases, leaky gut is the sole cause. In others, it is contributory but not causative. There are at least 3 mechanisms by which leaky gut causes brain dysfunction. It impairs absorption of nutrients needed for neurotransmitters and normal neuron function. It makes possible passage of toxins into the bloodstream and brain, damaging neurons. And finally, it causes the release of inflammatory chemicals which get into the brain and damage neurons. Many children can actually overcome their attention deficit symptoms simply by going gluten-free. There are a number of different approaches that are used to heal leaky gut. You may read about some of these on the internet or find out about them at the health food store. Of course, removing inflammatory foods is important. Eliminating toxins is important. Reducing stress is critical. And then there are a variety of different supplements that are used, as well as healing foods. The problem is that we have to ensure that the therapies we are taking are being utilized by the body effectively and not creating more inflammation due to an inability to digest them. People are continuously being advised to take various supplements, herbs, and vitamins, or to eat a certain diet to heal their leaky guts. But what is missing? Digestion and absorption. All systems rely on digestion. When you eat, foods should be digested into nutrients, and those nutrients are delivered to every cell of your body. What happens when you're eating not so healthy foods and not breaking them down? You're actually supplying your cells with toxins that damage the cell. When enough cells are damaged, and there's not enough nutrition to repair them, inflammation occurs. This is your immune system responding to the presence of something foreign or unfamiliar in the body. The inflammation is your immune system protecting you and trying to remove the unhealthy cells. When inflammation persists, disease occurs. You can see from this diagram that gut dysfunction affects every system in the body.
Hi, my name is Steve. I'm 62 years old and live in Sandy, Utah. I first started having health issues 2012 when I first noticed my blood pressure was high. It went as high as 220 over 100. At about 2016, I was having problems swallowing my food and dealing with heartburn on a regular basis. May 2019, I visited Dr. Ray Andrew. In July, he started me on the leaky gut protocol. I took my blood pressure and it was very low. I quit taking lisinopril and hydrochlorothiazide. I also quit taking the omeprazole, and so I've not had to take omeprazole since about August 2019. Today is May 14th. 2020. I also went from a weight of 210 to 178 pounds. My health is incredible. Well, maybe that's an overstatement. It's much better than it was a year ago. My pant size went from 38 to 33 waist over a period of 3 months.
Our protocol for helping you repair your gut starts with digestive enzymes, systemic enzymes, healing herbs, probiotics, vitamin D, and liposomal bovine colostrum. Of course, you also need to pay attention to getting adequate sleep, better managing your stress, avoiding toxins, avoiding inflammatory and antigenic foods, and eliminating any of those bugs that we find in your gut that are problematic. Some of the inflammatory and antigenic foods that are the biggest offenders include milk, cheese, other dairy products, gluten, grains, chips, fast food, sugar and artificial sweeteners, alcohol, sodas, caffeine, processed meats, fried foods, and legumes. As I mentioned, undigested food particles are highly antigenic. This is one of the many reasons toxins are so dangerous. They form chemical bonds with food, preventing it from being digested. The immune system doesn't recognize these food chemical complexes and begins to mount an attack, triggering hypersensitivity reactions and autoimmune disease. So we start with digestive enzymes to make sure we can break down the food that you eat into absorbable nutrients. Once the nutrients are available through effective digestion, systemic enzymes help ensure optimal blood flow and delivery of nutrients to the cells while breaking down inflammatory proteins. We include probiotics, which have numerous roles, including improving microflora diversity. That's the variety of good bugs in the intestines. They also educate the immune system, and they promote healthy elimination. They're also responsible for manufacturing some of our vitamins. Colostrum is the substance that a lactating mammal produces before milk. It is loaded with nutritional, immune, and growth factors. By contrast, milk is loaded with water, fat, protein, and sugar. Colostrum is a powerful adjunct to the other agents in the process of healing a leaky gut, but we use a liposomal formulation to maximize delivery of the healing compounds to the small intestines. When people sign up for our gut repair protocol, they receive an approved foods list, 9 weeks of meal plans with a grocery list, daily anti-inflammatory menus, recipes, the enzyme protocols, a food journal which is on paper or can be accessed via smartphone or desktop, and electronic means of privately messaging your coach. Here are some of the symptoms people report before starting the protocol. A lot of patients report digestive disorders of various kinds, but not all. Some actually feel fine in their guts but have autoimmune diseases. But as you can see, there are a number of very common symptoms and problems that people present with before starting gut repair. As they go through the process, they report a little bit of constipation in the beginning, which improves as they continue. They notice far less bloating, and they're more comfortable at bedtime. They sleep better. They have more energy. Occasionally, a patient will have a symptom of detoxification. Sometimes adjustments need to be made in the protocol. And this is why it's important to work with your coach. Here are some of the numeric improvements a handful of people noted by the end of the protocol. Overall, you can see that the majority of symptoms drastically improved. You will notice here at the bottom, this patient had a symptom improvement of only 31%, and this one of only 15%. These are the two patients who didn't follow the protocol as directed, and were also under a significantly higher amount of stress than the other participants, which obviously made it harder for them to follow the protocol. As you can see, with the first participant, she reported 102 symptoms on a symptom survey. By the end of the 9-week protocol, 96 of those had improved. And even the person with the least improvement still had 15%. Of these severe symptoms, you can see the improvement in this small cohort of patients, the red being before and green being after. On the moderate, the symptoms that they reported as being moderate also improved significantly. You can see in this group, one patient lost 20 pounds, others lost in the single digits. One actually gained a pound. This patient actually was underweight at the beginning of the study and needed to gain weight, so that was a good thing. I point out too, ironically, people often think that when they start this protocol, they're going to starve to death, especially when they're avoiding all of those foods they love so much. It turns out that people don't tend to report much hunger. Most people actually report feeling satisfied because there is no limit to the amount of food that you can eat. It's simply that what you are eating has changed. This is the food sensitivity test that I showed you. Here are the results before and after. Red shows the number of foods each patient was reactive to before the program, and the green shows where they were after 63 days. This is the same for the reactions that were reported as moderate, green being the after again. In this graph of stool analysis results, the green bars represent the percentage of patients who improved on each measure. Yellow is for those who experienced no change, while the red shows how many got worse. The remarkable thing about this is that in this study of gut repair, no attention was given to actually treating stool abnormalities such as microorganisms. If your stool test or other indicators suggest yeast or another unhealthy bug, of course we're going to treat it. But it's impressive to note that the gut repair protocol actually improves a lot of this by itself. So in summary, we see that symptoms improve, body weight improves, food sensitivities improve, stool analysis improves, and that's in only 63 days. People notice improvements specifically in their skin, their energy, their digestion, of course, their hormones, fertility, their life, their immune systems, and their weight.
I'm Stacy Lewis. I'm 31 years old. Before I came to see Dr. Andrew, I was experiencing quite a few digestive issues and all kinds of food sensitivities. I had nausea and stomach pain often, frequent spells of diarrhea. I've been a lot happier in my gut. Everything settles better. My appetite and my stomach kind of just agree now. They don't argue about whether I'm hungry or full anymore. Food sets better. I don't have bloating and I don't have as much inflammation in my hands and feet. Since being able to introduce foods again, I've been able to have dairy again. And before, I could not tolerate dairy. That caused me all kinds of gas and bloating and irritability and diarrhea. Now I've been able to a glass of milk and some cheese with no reaction whatsoever.
You have seen a few of the things that gut repair has done for others. What could it do for you? Could it make it so that you forget about your gut for a change? Stop those headaches? Lose some weight? Get rid of rashes? Have more energy? Have a clearer mind? Calm down an autoimmune disease? Prevent a disease? You won't know until you do it. I'm Dr. Ray Andrew. Thank you for joining me on this brief introduction to your gut and its repair. I hope to see you soon so you can heal your gut and get back in the game of life.